Record. Okay, so we're going to start recording now until basically until the end, mostly until the end of the presentation. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint? Yes. Okay, so before we start, we're going to be talking a little bit about some myths, all right? Some myths that are very important in the case of learning a language, all right? You know what a myth is? It's a myth or reality, right? What is the Spanish for myth? Mito, okay? So we're going to mention very quickly 5 myths, right? That people are a little bit confused. And I'm going to be quoting the 2012 work of Julian Reynolds of the University of Pennsylvania, right? So let's see the first myth, all right? Myth number 1, children are better language learners than adults. Reality is that the human brain can learn and grow at any age, okay? So when people say, oh, children learn languages much better than adults, no, anybody can learn languages at the same time. Maybe in the case of children, sometimes they can acquire a better pronunciation than adults, right? But adults are usually more efficient learners than children. Maybe in some cases, children can have fewer inhibitions. They are not as inhibited as adults, right? But anybody can learn the language at any age, okay? Let's go to the second myth. Second myth, only people with an ear for languages can learn a second language, right? With an ear is the same as we say in Spanish, los que tienen oído, all right? Only people with an ear for languages can learn the second languages. The reality is that there are many factors that affect or that influence the learning of a language, right? And aptitude, motivation, the opportunities you have to use the language and to learn, how willing, how motivated you are to communicate, the strategies, the way you learn the language is not only for people who have an ear for languages, right? This is a myth. Let's go to myth number 3, the third one. Language learners should master basic tasks before moving on to complex ones, right? First, the basic and then the more complex. Well, the reality says that when you study a language, it's not linear, right? If you see the word here, linear, right? So there is not an addition of one rule after the other, right? So basically, you can mix everything, right? I'm trying to simplify the information here. And that is why it's so important that the students get in touch with real material, right? Real audios from a very early stage. And maybe this is a very good advice for the teachers that are here today, right? It's very important to work with real material because there is no linear addition of rules in English. Let's move to the myth number 4. Studying from books, CDs, and computer programs are effective ways to learn a language. Well, the reality suggests that it's possible to learn a language in different ways, right? Reading, listening, writing. But basically, to learn a language, you need input, output, and interaction, right? So some people are self-taught, right? And they learn with online programs. But there is not a rule that you have to learn in a certain way, okay? And the last myth that I'm going to mention today is that the best way to learn a language is to move to a foreign country and to be fully immersed. I can give you hundreds of examples. I live in the United States, right? And I work a lot with the Hispanic community here. I see people who have been living here for 20 years or more, right? And they still cannot speak English, and they still cannot have a fluent conversation in English. So that doesn't mean that if you move to the United States or to England or to Australia, you're going to be better speaking English, right? Because you are not a better runner because you run every day, right? Or you are not a better driver because you sleep in the garage, okay? or because you sleep in your car, right? In order to, I know a lot of people here that have been living here for a long time, but they never use the language. So that doesn't necessarily mean that if you live in a country where English is spoken, your English is going to be better, okay? So let me move now, let me open the door for my dog, okay? Let me move now to the topic that we're going to be talking today, that is how to think, how to develop the ability to think in English, right? But first, I'm going to be mentioning the difference between learning and acquisition, right? Because I'm going to be using the two terms, right? And mostly I'm going to be using the term acquisition, to acquire, right? It's very similar to Spanish, right? Acquire is adquirir, right? So let's see the difference between learning and acquisition. When do I say that I learn and when do I say that I acquire, right? When I learn a language, I learn the rules, the instructions, right? I learn the grammar, I need the explanation, you know, I know grammar, the rules, I'm talking about knowledge. Learning is something that is conscious, right? It's something that you decide. It's something that has to do with your choice, all right? But acquisition is something that has to do with your mother tongue. You learn and you acquire Spanish as your mother tongue, okay? Acquisition has nothing to do with grammar, has to do with intuition, has to do with trial and error, right? Acquisition is a subconscious process, right? And acquisition relates to constant communication, is an innate capacity to communicate. So why is this very important? This is important because when you learn a language, you have to study, but when you acquire the language, you are able to communicate very easily. And I'm going to show you a very typical example, right? Look at that. It says, acquiring a second language is very similar to learning how to drive a car. Why? Who can tell me why? Who is brave enough to unmute yourself and tell me why acquiring a second language is very similar to learning? How do you associate learning a language with learning how to drive? Any ideas? Anybody want to? Okay, Gabi.
I think because you have some steps that you have to follow, and I think at the first stage, in fact, you learned to drive a car, for example.
Okay, yeah, that's right, very good. And that is the difference. First, you learn, all right? But then what happens? It becomes, oh, you're breaking up.
But after with the practice, you can, you even process, you know, you're not thinking about. Yes, yeah. I have a problem with my Wi-Fi connection. Sorry.
No, don't worry. But it's very, very, very clear. And thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. But that is the idea of what you're saying, right? First, you learn it, right? And you have to think, and you have to do this and that, right? So the first thing you do is you have to think the same thing that we are. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When you have to think when you learn to drive a car, but then once you practice and once it is acquired, the habit of learning how to drive, it becomes automatic, right? So it's spontaneous, it's natural, right? What else? It's instinctive, it's effortless, unconscious, right? Impulsive. But first, you have to think. And then it becomes instinctive, automatic, and spontaneous and natural. Same thing happens with language learning, right? That's why learning how to think is very important, right? For example, if we think of a car, is there somebody who can describe the process that when you're learning how to drive, what is it that you have to think? For instance, you know, you have the accelerator, you have, we are talking about manual cars, right? Not automatic cars, right? So you have the accelerator, you have the brake, you have the clutch, you have the gear level, all the shift. So can somebody tell me what is the process that when you are learning that you have to think what you have to do? Is there a volunteer who knows this? Someone, does somebody know what you do when you drive, when you're learning? Okay.
You have to think about what do you want to do in the path, on the path.
Okay, and for example, what is it that you think when you're learning how to drive a car?
And maybe if you want to accelerate, you have to press the accelerator. Or if you want to stop, you have to press the brake.
Okay, do you know how to drive?
No, I'm 14.
Okay. Okay, because for the manual car, it's very important to use the clutch. Okay, all right. So you press the clutch with your left foot, right? You move the gear to first, okay, and then what you do? All right, with your right hand, you move the gear to first, then you press
the accelerator.
Very good. You press the accelerator with what? With your right.
With the right leg, and after that, in the same time, you have to take out slowly your left feet.
Okay.
For the clutch.
Very good. You release the clutch slowly, right? You release the clutch, you press the accelerator, and the car starts. Okay, this is something that at the beginning you have to think, all right? And that you have to like be thinking and what you're going to do. But then it becomes automatic, okay? So that is why learning how to drive is very similar to learning how to speak a language, right? And how to think in English. The definition of learning to drive is a process that the brain and the body go through in order to properly be able to control and use a car or motor vehicle. It's very similar to learning a language. It's a process that the brain and the body go together, right? Learning how to think in English is also a process, right? It's not something that happens automatically. It's not something that happens naturally. It's a process, and you have to train your brain to think in English. Today, I'm going to show you some techniques to help you train your brain to think in English, because it's a process. It's something that you have to like incorporate, okay? There are no secrets, right? There is no magic. Thinking in English is a process, and you have to develop the habit of creating ideas in your mind. You have to let the ideas come to your mind. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do an exercise, right? All together, but you do it on your own, okay? We're going to practice and see if it works, okay? So I will show you some pictures, and you will let any ideas come to your mind, okay? You see a picture and you think in English, okay? What you can see, what the people are doing in the picture, let ideas come to your mind, okay? This is an exercise, right, that will help you in the future, right? If you want, you can unmute yourself and you want to share with them, yeah? Well, you know where the mute button is, all right? But if not, you just can do it on your own, all right? So you see the pictures and you let ideas come to your mind. Okay, let's start. Let's see the first picture. Okay, what you can see, what you feel, okay? Yeah, got it.
Smile.
Smiles, yeah. What else?
Childhood.
Childhood, yeah. What else? What comes to your mind? Don't translate.
Happiness.
Happiness.
Children.
Happiness.
Happiness, children, yeah.
Bubbles.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Fantasy. Fantasy.
Fantasy, right. What about, what are they doing?
Bubbles.
Playing.
Running. Running.
Okay, uh-huh.
Beautiful
All right.
times.
Okay, yeah, there are no wrong, good to see you, Adriana. There are no wrong or right questions, right? Answer, sorry. It's whatever comes to your mind. You have to say there are trees, all right, the grass, children, very good. This is the way that you train your mind to think in English. Let's see another picture. What do you see here?
Things to do. Work.
A lot of work to do.
And chores.
Okay, chores, right. What else?
Traffic jam.
Very stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. The feeling is that he's stressed, right? When you have in the steering wheel all the sticky notes, right? What else? What comes to your mind when you see this? Heck.
Overloaded.
Overloaded, very good. Overloaded, a lot of work, right?
Headache.
Don't speak by phone when you are driving.
Yeah, all right, don't do that. Okay, yeah, don't be on the phone if you're driving. Very good, very good.
I can feel, I can see the headache. That
Headache. You said a headache?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I see the headache, but
okay.
you can see of a lot of things.
This is what comes to your mind, okay? Headache, right, very good, very good. Colors, right? Look at the sticky notes, all different colors. Very good. This is the training you have to do with your mind. Exactly. Let's see one more picture. Oh my God, what can you see here? What things come to your mind?
The disaster.
Fire.
Fire.
Fire, yeah.
Disaster.
Firefighters.
Firefighters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The candle
Fear.
that, the
Fear.
candle that start fear, fire.
Yes, fear and fire, right? That's interesting.
Frightened.
Very good, very good. Fear, fire, an old house, a mansion, right? Water running, right?
Destruction. Destrucción.
Destruction, yeah.
Destruction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Valientes. Valiant.
Brave.
Brave.
Braves.
Right, all right, but don't think in Spanish, right?
No.
The idea is to avoid translation. What ideas come to your mind, all right? Very good, very good, very good. So today you are learning how to train your brain to think in English, yes? And to train your brain to think in English, you have to converse with yourself in English. Right? You know what is to converse, same as in Spanish, right? You have to talk to you. You can describe things that you can see. You can describe your day and the things you're doing. The idea is that you can have a conversation in your mind, right? Do it every day. Make it a habit of a start. You're not crazy if you talk to yourself.
But you see, yes.
Are you sure about this?
Are you sure?
It's good that you say that.
And,
Great.
and if you tell me something, I tell you something.
Yeah, when you are on the elevator, right, you look at yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself, right? But have you heard inner voice? Have you heard the expression, what is an inner voice? I will say it in Spanish. Es una voz interior.
Interior.
Interior, yeah, it's an inner voice. Let that inner voice become an inner voice in English. That is the idea, right? Let ideas come to your mind and let those ideas come in English. This is a habit. You have to train your brain to think in English. I will give you some more tips that you can do. For example, when you don't know a word, right? Look up for the definition of the word. Let's see an example. Come across, okay? You come across a word and say, well, what is come across? I don't know what come across. So you go to the dictionary. The dictionary says encontrarse con, cruzarse con. But no, this is wrong. Don't look up for the translation into Spanish, right? Look up for the definition of the word. Because if you are able to define the word, you are able to use it, and you can think of that concept in English. To come across is to encounter somebody by chance. And you can even find an example in the dictionary. We came across Monica in the post office, right? I came across my boss in the elevator, right? I came across a new word today, right? So today you came across a new word that is come across, okay? I'm just being ridiculous, but okay. So defining words is very important, and looking up for the definition of words is very important, right? Another important tip that I'm going to give you today is that develop the habit of defining words. Do it as an exercise, right? What is a brake? A freno? No. Brake is the pedal I press to stop the car, okay? Develop the habit of defining words, right? If you learn how to define words, you will start creating those ideas in your mind, and it will be easier for you to think in English. Wife, what is wife? Who can define the word wife?
Watch out. What are you going to say?
Sacrifice woman who had been married with a man.
Okay, so wife could be, of course, it's a possible. We don't say the translation. Is a woman I married, is a woman a person marries, right? That is called the wife. So this is very important. Develop the ability to define words, okay? I will mention now another technique. I know it's a little bit difficult, particularly for very low levels, right? But you can do what is called shadowing, okay? Shadowing is a technique that makes you repeat what you hear, right? That makes you repeat an audio when you hear it. It's like an echo, okay? So shadowing is a very good technique to improve your fluency, your pronunciation, and your intonation, but also it will help you think in English. Go to YouTube, type "Learn English with Audio Story," and you will see that you will have all different levels. If you're a beginner, you will choose level 1 and 2, or level 3 if you are a pre-intermediate, or level 5, 6, 4, 5, and 6 if you're an intermediate, or maybe 8, 9, or 7, okay? So you choose a level. For example, today here I chose level 3, all right? And no, level 2. I chose level 2. And you will see that you have a lot of different stories, right? You will listen to the story, you will read the story, and you can shadow. What is to shadow? To read at the same time. for practice. We are going to do some short practice. Please try to be muted. So everybody is muted, so you can do it on your own at home. Or let me see, I can mute everybody, mute all, okay. So now everybody is muted, okay. So let's do this, all right. I chose this, Kidnapped is one of the short stories, right? So you are going to
Kidnapped.
You're going to listen to the story, you're going to read the story, but try to read at the same time, okay? Try to do it at home. Let's see what happens. Let me see, I cannot.
By Robert Louis Stevenson. Chapter 1. The House of Shores.
My name is David Balfour, and my story begins one morning in June 1751. This was the day I left my father's house in Essendine for the last time. My friend, Mr. Campbell, was waiting for me.
"I'll go with you to the river,"
said Mr. Campbell. We walked together down the road without speaking. After a while, Mr. Campbell asked,
"Are you sorry to leave Essendine?"
Okay, are you doing it, right? The idea is to read at the same time. I will show you, I will do it with you. Oh, sorry.
Kidnapped. By Robert Louis Stevenson. Chapter 1. The House of Shores.
My name is David Balfour, and my story begins one morning in June 1751. This was the day I left my father's house in Essendine for the last time. My friend, Mr. Campbell, was waiting for.
Okay, so shadowing helps you develop different abilities, right? It gives you more fluency. It helps you like think in English and have your mind focus in English, right? And also will help you improve your pronunciation and intonation. And you can do it at home, 5 minutes. It's not a long activity. You should do it for 5-10 minutes as a practice. You can pick, as I said before, let me show you. You can pick any story that you want. You have a lot of different stories, right? Remember that you have to type learn English with audio story, right? And you will see all the stories there, okay? This is a very good practice that you can use, and this will be very helpful to start thinking in English. Another activity that I mentioned before is let ideas come to your mind, okay? So you are like, I don't know, you are cooking, right? Think about the context, what is going on around you, what you can see. You are waiting for the bus, all right? Or I don't know, you're driving, or maybe you are walking in the park, or at the gym, or in your lunch hour. Let ideas come to your mind, okay? Think, take a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and say, what is happening, what I can see. The same thing that we did with the pictures, right? But with what is happening around you, with the context, right? What type of information you can extract from the concept, from the context, and think about that in English, okay? Another technique is rehearse what you would say, okay? Rehearse quiere decir ensayar, okay? So to rehearse what you would say is very important because once it is recorded in your mind, you already know. I'll give you a short example. For example, I don't know, you are a tourist and you come to the United States and you decide to go to have coffee at Starbucks. So you're thinking, okay, what do I say? How would I order my coffee? I want coffee. No, that is not the way people talk, all right? Maybe you want to say, hi, can I have a hot latte with 2 raw sugars? Can I also get a toasted bagel with cream cheese? Okay, if you practice that in your mind before, the moment that you're going to use it, it's going to come out naturally and spontaneously, right? The same thing will happen to you when you have a meeting or when you have an interview in English or when you have a phone call, right? If you practice that before, what you're going to say, right? It's already recorded in your mind, and that is the way you start thinking in English. So ideas come out spontaneously, right? Come out like they are more natural, right? It's not forced, it's not thought. Another thing that you can do is repeat what you hear. And this is, I'm sure that all of you or most of you like watching Netflix or any other streaming services, right? And so if you're watching a show, take a few minutes, 5 minutes, no more than that, watch the same show again at a different time, not necessarily after you finish. So at night you're watching, I don't know, not La Casa de Papel because it's in Spanish. Watch, I don't know, The Crown, for instance, we have here, right? You are watching The Crown. So the next day, you watch the same show again, right? You sit in front of the television for 5 or 10 minutes, and you watch the show again, and you start repeating what you hear, right? The second time is better because the second time you already know the story. You are not interested in what is going to happen because you already know it, okay? So second time you watch a show is you watch for language, and you listen to what the actor or the actors are saying, right? And you repeat it, okay? If it is too difficult, you may add subtitles in English, right? And that will help you. But this is a very interesting technique to start creating the habit of thinking in English, okay? So, summing up, think in English, right? There are no secrets, right? The only way is to practice, practice, and practice. And again, you have to create the habit of thinking in English, training your mind, letting ideas, not translating, not letting your mother tongue, Spanish, come to your mind, right? Just speaking, saying whatever comes to your mind. There is no right or wrong. The same thing that we do with the pictures, you have to do it in your everyday life. Little by little, you will learn and you will improve and you will try to make it better, okay? So now it's time for questions or for something you would like to share. So I will ask Sophia